let's call it the pre-planned life, right? And we all have the stories, maybe different country to country, but this is what you're supposed to do with your life, right? This is how you should live, this is who you should marry, this is the type of work you should look for, and this is what you should prioritize. And I think increasingly people are, I don't want to say they're rejecting that, but they're questioning that, right?
In the beginning, I think you kind of went to Bali and then met a lot of people like yourself who were trying to figure out what they want to do.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly that.
Does it sort of indicate that there's a growing tribe of people who are actually quitting their so-called comfortable jobs and trying to figure out what to do next and be at the creative best?
There is absolutely a group of people that are quitting their let's call it the pre-planned life, right? And we all have the stories, maybe different country to country, but this is what you're supposed to do with your life, right? This is how you should live, this is who you should marry, this is the type of work you should look for, and this is what you should prioritize. And I think increasingly people are, I don't want to say they're rejecting that, but they're questioning that, right? So certainly through Hubud over the last 6 years, we've had thousands of people through. So we definitely have people that are at the beginning of the journey, let's say. Maybe they've just left and they're thinking what to do next. But there's lots of people running, multi-million-dollar companies, lots of solo entrepreneurs. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's quite a range. So I would say we have a mix of people that are, let's say, freelancers that can work anywhere because they're working from home. People that are part of remote companies or part of remote teams within companies. So they have a job, a normal job, but they can work remotely because their company is flexible. And then lots of people that are running their own businesses and managing it from Bali or other places like that.
We do workplace transformation strategy, and the way you're saying it, that the workplace is no more a physical entity. I mean, you probably in the future, you don't need a physical space to work from. I mean, do you see that reality happening in, say, 2050?
By 2050, it won't take that long. I think it won't take that long. So it's, I don't want to say there is no purpose for a workplace where people can come together. I do think that, the idea, most of us who work in an office, let's say in the knowledge sector as individuals. So most of us actually work remotely, even in our office. We sit at a desk. It's all the communication, all the work is happening online anyways, even if the person is sitting 5 desks down from you. I would say for a lot of people, the office is not the most productive place. There's a lot of distractions, there's a lot of noise, so more people can get more done outside. So the question is how do we replicate or even improve the human connection that happens within an office, right? So I would say that's the challenge, but there's lots of ways that we can already see that that's happening. I think what people do in offices may change. So people are not coming to offices to be productive, right? You used to have to go to the factory in order to do your work, right? Because the machines were there, or you needed to come to the office because the computer was there, or the fax machine was there. And now we don't need that at all, right? So I guess it's possible that we see the office become more of a touch point, right? Where people can come together, maybe project-based, maybe purely for social activities, but it becomes almost a clubhouse and a reflection of brand values. Yeah. So kind of like retail. I mean, do we need to go to the store for most things? No, but I do think there's still a value in being able to go and touch things and see things and feel things in the retail experience. So why not an office experience as well?
So knowledge work and essentially knowledge workers are, like you said, human connection. These are essentially people who are doing, I would think, right brain kind of work, creative kind of work. And I think most of the left brain, the non-creative, repetitive work has been completely computerized, has been taken over by algorithms. And I think most of the job losses has been in that segment.
I would like to say, machines will never replace humans in terms of the creative process or the creativity, the new ideas, etc. But I don't know if that's the case or not. I mean, the way things are going, I think anything is possible with that. But I do think one way or the other, let's say for the humans that are still working in 2050, there will always, we're social creatures, we're tribal, we're pack animals, basically. So even if we're able to work from home or work from different places or, we'll be working in a very different way entirely, I do think somehow, physically, digitally, that need for human connection will still be there, will still be strong. And so the question is, the office does that now, physical office. You come in the morning, you have your chai together, you do this, you do that, you have meetings. So what does that look like if we don't have that office? What does collaboration look like if we don't sit face to face anymore?
Right. And I do second the statement that you made, that the verdict is kind of not yet out on in terms of if artificial intelligence can actually take over human emotions. There are some early studies which kind of indicate that they eventually will, but I suspect that governments and the so-called powers to be will stall that, because there are a lot of social and ethical issues attached with that, and it may come to a position where it is actually kind of proven that machines can decide much better who will be the next prime minister of my country than people are.
Sure.
Right. So I think that's what we are staring at, and probably we'll know the answer in the coming years.
Yeah.
When it comes to large corporate organizations, they do have their HR managers and HR policies laid in place, which kind of course they've become more flexible now. But there's somebody to kind of take care of, your wellness and how you should behave in office and what you should do in office. But when it comes to the freelancers and the startup kind of people that you're dealing with, who takes care of that responsibility, that social responsibility?
For the wellness of the employees?
Yes.
It's a very good question. The answer is nobody. Nobody takes care of them, and they have to learn how to take care of themselves. But I think that is also very much, maybe even more so, the case for people working in corporate environments. So even if you have an HR person whose job it is, or department whose job it is to think about employee well-being, my experience is that large companies are not very good at it. Good intentions, but it's very difficult. I mean, everybody has different requirements for what that looks like. So companies have certain tools. Maybe it's entitlements, flexibility of workplace, different maternity, paternity leaves, or things like this, right? And they can encourage certain types of behavior. So maybe not working too late, or bringing in learning opportunities for staff. I mean, they can do these things. But ultimately, I think people need to take care of themselves. They need to understand, and maybe this is where companies can help, bringing in resources, but they need to understand what burnout looks like. They need to understand what stress and overwhelm looks like. They need to understand how to be better communicators, so there's less friction and conflict in the workplace, which is a big source of stress for people, right? So I think companies, I would say at the best, can be enabling environments for that. They can talk about these things. They can talk about mental health, for example. This is a big one right now in the UK, to bring some of these issues out, so that people are more likely to say, hey, I'm having this problem, and maybe the company can help, maybe not, but I need to go do this, and maybe can I have the time for that? And companies can do it. That happen.
Right. Perhaps it is not the responsibility of HR alone. I think it has become so multi-layered, and in every organization you have multiple generations working together.
Correct.
I think one has to approach it as a more like a holistic kind of a solution. But I see that the approach in general has been more like, you kind of buy things off the shelf. There is no holistic approach. For example, I met somebody who does furniture about a week back, and he's made this fancy table, and it's got it kind of converts to a bed in the office. And he says, hey, look, whenever somebody feels like sleeping, he can actually go there and sleep. So the table converts it into a bed. And he's trying to sell that. And I said to him, hey, look, unless the organization has sleep protocols infused as part of the HR policy, this is meaningless. So at the organization level, you have to work together hand in hand. The facilities guys have to work together with HR, and that HR has to work together with management to actually pull this through. Because there's so many multicultural, multi-level issues involved.
Yeah, there are, because you're right, it's very different across cultures, across departments, across personality types, and sometimes that's the challenge with putting all of this on HR. So there's a bit more of a user-first
understanding
approach,
of the user,
right? And so companies understanding that we have to really look at how our employees work and where the energy is, and support them there.
I mean, from a company's point of view, valuation comes from things like brand identity, corporate culture, but real estate is always an expense, know. But I do feel that it is something, it can be used as a very strong tool to actually enhance people's productivity and to actually improve a company's valuation.
Yeah, sure. Well, it goes back again to employee well-being, right? So if, I think basically if you have companies that are, they're the right people for the right jobs, so this is the very first thing. There's a mission that they understand and are kind of excited about, they can get behind, so they feel connected to the purpose of what the company is doing. And then they're treated well, whatever that means, right? I don't know if it means good leave, nice snacks in the cafeteria, a nice ergonomic chair, or what have you. But the idea of investing in your people, so it might mean that you get a few less people per square meter, for example, because you give a bit more breathing room. Definitely I would say the smarter companies the cost of replacing staff is so high that you wonder why companies don't take that into account as a big factor. Yeah. Like once you get the right person, they're aligned, they're passionate, they know what they're doing. It's just so expensive to replace them. So giving them a good working environment seems to be a no-brainer. It's a lot of wasted space. It really, and it's such a costly thing, right?
Yeah.
So
space is so expensive, and so it's very difficult to go back 5 years and imagine that a investment banker or a bank, international bank, would actually talk about working in collab spaces and working from home. But that is beginning to happen because of severe financial pressure.
Absolutely. Well, I went to a conference in London 4 years ago that I spoke at, and I remember having this conversation with a number of, let's say, older members of very traditional real estate companies. And they said, no, corporates will never do this kind of thing. This is not how corporates work. They want long-term leases. They want their own private space. They want, this flexible workspaces for freelancers, these kind of things. Fast forward 4 years, and it's absolutely not the case, right? And my argument has always been, how can a company that has a fiduciary responsibility to its shareholders ignore this? I mean, as you say, it's the second largest cost. How do you just say, well, it's not important. We don't mind that we're wasting 60% of our rental outlay because it's not utilized and we're not doing this properly. We know that there's market volatility, so we're going to pay for a much bigger space in case we need it. You know what I mean? I mean, it's really odd economics.
Well, thank you so much for spending this time with us.
Not at all.
Enjoy the rest of your stay here.
Thanks very much. Thanks for coming in. Now, when I'm having this, am I talking to you? I'm not looking at the camera? How do we do this? 2 minutes, max. Good.